When you decide you want to cut some cheese for your cheese board, I love triangles, and I'd like to make the case for adding triangle shapes to your cheese board. And it's really easy. The first way that is the easiest is when you get your block of cheese, it comes in a triangle shape, because then you just have to cut it this way. Let me show you how that works. So let me stop there. You can use a knife and you can cut off this rind. This is an edible rind, this is a natural rind, but some people don't like it. So a lot of times on a natural rind, I would cut off the side rind and I leave the little bit on the end. So it kind of gives them a little handle. So I can cut it with that. But if I want nice even slices, what I would do is use something like this little cheese slicer, and it cuts it like butter. It's so great. And every little slice gets a nice little slice there. You can get them even. It's just so beautiful. So that's the easiest way to do your triangle slices, is to start with a piece of cheese that is a triangle. So what do you do when you have a square? Well, you can cut that square into triangles by thinking about your geometry class. So I could cut this into just 2 triangles like this. And I could also cut this, I'm going to cut it this way, and we're going to make long, skinny little triangles. Now, this is great. I've got a little crack in my cheese. This is just like the natural part of the cheese. You know what that problem is like, I'm going to have to eat that part, which is totally fine. Again, I can keep cutting with this. And one of the other tips I will say is, if you're going to cut things down like this, think about doing it when it's very cold. So this is a beautiful cheese. This is getting close to room temperature, and we're under studio lights. So it's a little bit softer, and the firmer it is, the easier it is to cut. The more room temperature it is, the better it is to taste. So you want to start with the cold, and I probably could even get this into, because I'm using this little slicer and it's not going to stick like it might stick to this cheese knife because it's room temperature. I can even get lots of little tiny pieces. So it's not a problem that I'm going to have to eat that little piece that's going to fall off here, because I have delicious cheese. But that is how you can cut your cheese into triangles, and I encourage you to try it for your next cheese board. One of the most versatile shapes that you can cut your cheese in, if you're going to cut your cheese for your cheese board, is to use sticks. It's simple. You're really just going to be cutting your cheese like that. But let's take it a little further. If you have 3 cheeses that you want to cut into sticks, you can cut some into little short sticks. You could cut some into fat sticks. You could even cut some into, let's say, big sticks. Maybe you're going to do a tasting and you want people to have a nice chunk of cheese. When you put these all together and you put them on your board, each different kind of shape will look different and will help your cheese board enjoyer or your cheese board guests to be able to go back and have another piece of the one they tried, or to try a new one they haven't yet tried. So think about all your different stick options when you're making your next cheese board, and decide which stick is best for you. So if you want to choose which cheeses to cut and which cheeses not to cut, you can check out our video on that. But there are some cheeses that are just sticklers for not wanting to be cut into a triangle or a stick, and those are the perfect cheeses to nugget. So we're going to be talking about that today. Now, why would you want to nugget? Well, one, the cheese could be too hard, it's a lot of work to cut it into sticks because it's a very firm cheese, or it could be a cheese like a cheddar, which is the example we have here. And you can even see all of, these little holes here. This is all of those curds that have come together and been pressed together, but they don't really like to stay together, and so they break apart really easily, and we'll show you when we go to nugget this. So cheeses like cheddar, a blue cheese that's not like a real smooth blue cheese, and something like this aged Gouda, and this is a beautiful aged Gouda. You can see these little white spots here. Those are tyrosine crystals. Those are like little salt bombs. They're not salt, they're tyrosine, it's protein from aging cheese, but They're fantastic, and people who like aged Gouda love them. So hard cheeses, a blue cheese, and think something like a cheddar that just crumbles when you try to cut it into a triangle. It's like out to get you, but it's not. You can tackle it with a nugget. So how do we start? Well, first you need a knife. Actually, a lot of the knives in your knife drawer will work, but you just basically want a point. Now, this is a hatchet cheese knife. This is great for a hard cheese, but we really just need the point. This is known as a parm knife. This is a fancy sort of at-home parm knife. Much bigger ones are used to split open a big wheel of parm, but you're just looking for something with a point. You can use the point of a chef's knife, the point really of any knife. And the idea is that you're not really cutting it so much as breaking apart these little nuggets. So let's start with this aged Gouda. We're just going to basically put it into the cheese and start pushing down, and it'll start to break off into little nuggets. And now sometimes you'll get a nugget that wants to crack afterwards, or let's see if I can make a nugget that's too big. That one's not too big, but if I was doing them all this size, I might want to break that down. You just go back in, you give it a little wiggle, and it pops open. So I'm not slicing, I'm just nuggeting. So this beautiful cheese now has these lovely shapes. Again, that gives us something, a new texture for our cheese board too. We might have triangles on it and sticks, and now we have nuggets, and it just breaks up your cheese board and makes it look special. What you don't want to do is make them like so small they look like cheese crumbs. We know nobody wants to eat cheese crumbs. You might get some of those in the process of making these big guys, but try to make them big enough that it's a nice size bite for you to chew. So this is a cheddar. This is a cloth bound cheddar, and you can see I barely had to even push into that, and that wants to break apart. I can even go further into this one and start to break off a big chunk. Maybe this was like all I wanted for my little lunch here, and I'm just gonna let that nugget off. I can even break it with my hands. I mean, this one is tender enough that I could probably just do this with my hands too, although you might not want to go touching all the cheese if all your guests are going to eat it. But again, big, beautiful nuggets for your next cheese board. I hope you'll nugget your heart out.